Okay, welcome everyone. So, thanks for coming today. I have a motion here to adopt the agenda as amended. We are going to be removing number 5, ZA 50 2023 from the agenda as they have withdrawn their application. So it is moved by Councillor Varney, second by Councillor Hunter. All in favor? You're going to all record your votes. We're getting used to this. And that carries. Thank you. Councillor, is there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Now, I have a motion. It is moved by Councillor Johnston and second by Councillor Jorgensen. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Please vote about going into closed session. Okay, that carries. And just, we're going to turn off my microphone and then we're going to go into closed session.
way or the other.
I'm just waiting on our clerk, so we'll get started in just a minute. Okay, are we all ready? Great. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back. We did have a closed session earlier today. And prior to the closed session, we did amend the agenda to remove number 5, zoning amendment 50-2023 for JT3A Investment Inc., as they have withdrawn their application. So if you're tuning in for that, we're not going to get there. So just so people know, and you will notice on the broadcast that we are all in pink today, and we are in pink to bring acknowledgement to Pink Shirt Day, which is actually tomorrow. But I think we all want to, be loud and proud against bullying, and we're pleased. It's the least we can do is wear a pink shirt and stand up to bullies. So thank you for participating, Council. And before I get into the public meetings, I do also just want to say I won't be here in March, so I wanted to congratulate GAP on their tremendous fundraising over the weekend and thank fellow councillors for joining us. And I want to give a shout out to Councillor Johnston, who raised a tremendous amount of money, and we're proud of you, and thank you for doing that. I walked with the district team.
I'm proud of this community, Your Worship. You were there on Saturday afternoon. There was over 300 people. And I don't know whether everyone understands this, but it was in the social media, but we were number 2 in Canada. In Canada. $172,000 and still counting. I've got donations still coming in. And when they did the per capita, Gravenhurst blew everybody in Canada away. That's this town. We care about, the disadvantaged.
Yes, well, thank you for that. And again, I did want to center you out, because if you go on the list, you will see how much money he raised, and that's tremendous. I think we all participated in some fashion and some staff. So again, thanks for the opportunity to make that acknowledgement today. Speaking of acknowledgements, I would like to go to Councillor Robinson for the land acknowledgement statement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the First Peoples, who for thousands of years before us were and are still the keepers and caretakers of this land where we now live and work, and in particular, the Chippewas of Rama, Watam, Mohawk First Nations, and the Moon River Métis. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. We recognize all the generations of Indigenous people and their historic connection to this place, and we are grateful for the opportunity to gather here at this time.
Thank you. This afternoon, there are public meetings scheduled for 4 zoning bylaw amendment applications. Application number ZA 17, 2023, Dennison and Stebbing. Application number ZA 37, 2023, Brian Cameron. Application number ZA 44, 2023, 1353115 Ontario Inc. Application number ZA 48, 2023, Jody Yokin. The Planning Act requires that a public meeting be held before council decides to pass a zoning bylaw amendment. The public meeting serves 2 purposes. First, to present to council and the public the details and background to the proposal. And second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before a council decision is made. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the public meeting. The Manager of Planning Services, Adam Ager, will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of public meeting was circulated. Staff will then advise of the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning amendment and provide any additional information that is relevant to the application. Staff will further summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the applicant will be requested to make a presentation, followed by questions or presentations from the public, either in favor or against the proposal. Council will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, staff, or anyone giving presentations. The zoning bylaw amendments will then be considered by council later this afternoon. If anyone from the public would like to request notification of the decision of any application, please complete the form provided on the table at the back. I will now ask the Manager of Planning Services, Adam Ager, to please advise how, when, and to whom notice of the public meeting was circulated.
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice of the public meeting concerning the proposed zoning bylaw amendments were sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 400 feet of the property subject to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and emailed to applicable agencies. Included with the notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal, a site plan, and a key map showing the location of the property in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13.
It is important to note that should council pass any bylaw this afternoon, there is a 20-day appeal period, during which time any person may appeal the decision of council. During this appeal period, no building permit may be issued or other work commenced. Also, in the event there is an appeal, and in order to be kept advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing, members of the public must request and be sent a copy of council's decision on the application. Public meeting number 1. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA 17, 2023, Dennison and Stebbing. I will now ask the Manager of Planning Services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw, provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application. Mr. Ager?
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject property is located in the southeast area of the municipality and on and near Bass Lake. There are actually 3 properties associated with this application, each highlighted in red on screen. They are all designated waterfront area in the official plan, and you can also see both Barkway Road as well as Thomas Road. The 3 properties are depicted here again. The properties are surrounded by residential land uses, both waterfront and rural in nature, with a variety of sizes. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment before you this evening was submitted to recognize lot area and frontage of resulting Lot 2 and to rezone resulting Lot 3 to residential backlot, RB7, in accordance with its official plan designation. The application was submitted concurrently with consent applications B18, 19, 20, and 21, 2023 in order to reconfigure 3 existing lots, which was considered by the Committee of Adjustment on February 16th and conditionally approved. So this is the existing lot layouts as we see here now. Moving forward, you can see now we have 2 clear properties that are waterfront in nature, and then the resulting back lot at the rear, which was currently or previously zoned rural residential, and it's now proposing to be put in a residential backlot zone, which is indicative of the waterfront designation in the official plan. It's also worth mentioning that only one of the lots that front onto Bass Lake require a zoning bylaw amendment, because it's decreasing in size, whereas the other one is increasing in size. So existing lots of record that are increasing in size don't need to seek relief, but the one that's getting slightly smaller does require the frontage and area relief. So an amending special provision has been provided for that lot. With respect to agency comments, the chief building official, the manager of revenue, the District of Muskoka, and Hydro One all indicated they have no objection or concern with the proposal. And in addition, letters of support from 2 abutting neighbors were received. Moving forward into site photos, this first photo is looking at the existing dwelling on Lot 1. This is turning west. It shows the dwelling located on the neighboring property, as well as the dwelling that we just saw in the photo before is right on your right-hand side. Turning and looking northeast, this photo shows the stairs looking towards the shoreline of Lot 2, which is currently vacant. This is looking across Lot 2. This is turning around vacant Lot 2. And then here's looking then through to the neighboring property. Again, you can see that these properties are densely vegetated. I apologize, I'm clicking as many times as I can, and it doesn't seem to be progressing the slides farther. This is Thomas Road running at the rear of the property adjacent to Lot 2. It's worth mentioning that it's only summer maintained, and that's why the road's in the condition you see there on screen. Oh, and this final photo here, it appears that my clicker's now catching up with me, is looking to along Barkway Road, which is Lot 3 would be on the left-hand side of your screen. It's staff's opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the official plan as appropriate and represents good planning. And as a result, staff are recommending that the application be approved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Does the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? Welcome to our new space, Mr. Fauner.
Yes, it's excellent.
It's the best in Muskoka, is it not?
It's high tech. Well, I would say so.
Yes,
Everybody else is going to have to update to keep up with you.
excellent. Welcome.
Now, the last time I was here, this worked, so I'm hoping that it will today. Oh. Oh, no, I thought I was being so high tech here. You just want me to close my laptop up and? There we go, okay, thank you. Stephen Fauner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1A4. Okay, thank you. I'm here representing Laura Dennison and James Stebbing regarding these proposed lot additions. And I just want to thank staff for their positive report, and they went out certainly when the property was covered in snow, and I appreciate that. So just wanted to point out, just going through this, something to keep in mind for Planning Council in particular, that there are currently 3 building lots here. This is really just a rearrangement, a reconfiguration of lots. There was someone who was present at the meeting for Committee of Adjustment, and she was concerned about, you know, what development rights were on certain properties, but they are, the 3 of them are building lots today. Oh, I guess I'm the one that's connected, actually. Oh, did you just click it? No, it was you. Oh, okay, it's not going as fast as we. No. Okay, we're just not quite in sync. Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead. So the result of this proposal, and I'll get into the maps here in just a moment, it's going to remedy some existing encroachments. There's an encroachment of stairs and parking area for the one waterfront lot, and it'll eliminate a narrow strip that actually goes currently from the back lot to the waterfront, and it will enlarge and regularize the back lot itself. As well, it'll divide the original Shore Road allowance and add it to the appropriate abutting property. And this is all part of a family planning matter. Next. So I just wanted to note the lots here and how we're going to go through the process. So the very first application is to sever off a strip, and this will actually take care of the encroachments I mentioned. But what happens is there's two things here. Lot 25, there will be a deeming bylaw probably coming to next planning council meeting. That'll deem lot 25 not to be a lot on a planned subdivision, so it's going to be added to. And then relating to the zoning bylaw today, lot 26 actually gets reduced in size, and it's actually below the lot size for a new lot. However, it is a building lot today. And we're also going to be, next, we're going to be adding a strip down the east side to lot 26. This is 4.8 meters in width. Adding that, it doesn't quite make up for what it's going to lose on the one side, but this will take away access from the back lot, which to me is a plus. Next. And then we're going to take the original Shore Road allowance and divide it in two to add it to the abutting properties. Next. And then the last application is going to basically make an addition to the back lot and really sort of regularize the property itself. And that is the second part of the zoning application, is to rezone that property to a residential backlot zone. Next. And this is the before picture. Next. And the after picture in the end. So I think it's a feel-good application, if I can call it that. Next. I'll just go through the photos quickly. These were done in April, so you can see the vegetation there. Next. And this is the encroaching walkway, if you will. Next. And this is the front of the existing lot that's developed. This is the westerly waterfront lot. Next. And the dwelling associated with it. I'm down near the dock, so there's obviously some slopes near the shoreline. Next. And you can see a stake there right beside the tree, just to the left of the large tree. That's the current corner of that particular property. It's where the two waterfront lots currently meet. Next. And this is the strip, if you will, 10 meters wide, that's going to be added to the lot to the left. Next. And this is the shoreline buffer on the easterly waterfront lot. Next. And this is just some of the slopes on that property, and there is a swale to the left there with the greenery in it. Next. And this is looking cross slope to the property to the east. Next. And this is the narrow strip that goes down the east side of the lots. You can make out the two stakes there. Next. And this is looking down that strip down towards the water. Next. And just further down towards the water along that strip. Next. And this is the backlot piece of property. Again, these were taken the end of April, so not the foliage on there quite yet. Really no environmental constraints on the property. Next. Next. And this is just looking Barkway Road down towards Thomas Drive. That's it to the right. You can barely see sort of an entrance there, but that is Thomas Road. Next. And this is looking in the other direction along the frontage of the backlot. Next. I don't think I need to go through the PPS. Next. Really, there's very little policy on lot additions, but again, this conforms to the intent of the official plan. Next. And in terms of zoning bylaw, I think I went through that with the maps as to how the bylaw will effect this severance. Next. And the deeming bylaw, I've noted that in the original Shore Road allowance. Next. Just mentioning that the status, actually the status of Bass Lake has changed. It's improved, as well as there was a specific Love Your Lake property evaluation done for this property, and found that there was an excellent shoreline buffer overall, and that the property owners have been good stewards of the land. Next. And the neighbors on each side support the proposal. Next. And I think I won't go through all my conclusions, but I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak to this? Okay. Are there any questions or comments from council to the planners or any persons who have made presentations? Councillor Varney?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I guess my question is, because it's 3 properties, is there a road into each of those 3 properties that, I think I can tell from the map, but I was just asking if one of those properties got sold, would the new owner be able to get into it, like lot 25? Is that to the planner, or I'm not sure who I'm asking that?
Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the councillor, the resulting lots all would have the appropriate either road or water frontage to be buildable lots.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Bass Lake, I know this is in the report that it's currently not considered requiring special environmental measures, yet it is still rather high phosphorus content lake. So I'm just wondering, under the site plan agreement, are we able to put in any provisions? For example, I always like to see water directed, not directly to the lake, things like that. So are we able to put in the site agreement, the site plan agreement, to have those, extra environmental concerns or suggestions even taken into account for building on that, the lot 2?
Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Jorgensen. You are right. It's no longer in the enhanced environmental protection policy area, so we're not looking for that level of detail, but we do have the benefit of having site plan back, and the benefit of that is to make sure that best practice environmental controls are put in place. So that's something we can absolutely include in an agreement and look to. And it's a great tool that we have in the waterfront area, ensuring that we're able to maintain and promote enhanced water quality.
Is there any other questions for council? Mr. Egger, are there any recommendations or comments to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings?
Your Worship, staff would recommend that the application be approved.
The zoning bylaw amendment will be considered later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. Public meeting number 2. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA 37-2023 for Brian Cameron. I will now ask the Manager of Planning Services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application. Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject property fronts onto Lake Muskoka and is accessed by Bryden's Bay Road. The property is designated urban shoreline residential in the official plan and is zoned residential 2, R2 in the town zoning bylaw and as discussed in the staff report. Next slide, please. The subject property is currently developed with an accessory storage building, dock, and detached dwelling with an attached garage, and at the rear an open deck at the front. The property is also established in the urban residential area, which consists of similarly sized lots and water frontages on Lake Muskoka to the east and west, which are developed with single detached dwellings, accessory structures similar in scale and lot line setbacks to the existing dwelling on the subject property. Next slide, please. The zoning bylaw amendment application had been submitted in order to construct a screened-in porch on the location of an existing open deck where the property fronts onto Lake Muskoka, not at the rear at the road. The subject property is 1058 Bryden's Bay Road. The application is necessary to permit a minimum setback of 18.2 meters from the optimal summer water level where the proposed porch, where currently right now the existing dwelling is set back at 20.1 meters. At the time of writing this report, the chief building official, the infrastructure technologist, and the manager of revenue had no objection to the proposed application. The deputy fire chief provided a comment saying no objection subject to the Ontario Fire Code and Ontario Building Code regulations, and notes that the department is primarily comprised of volunteers, which can impact response times and service levels. lastly, the District of Muskoka provided that they had no objection to the proposed application. Moving on to the next slide and looking at site photos. This is looking inwards from the property from Bryden's Bay Road, and I would just note here, it's well vegetated and you cannot see the dwelling from the road. Next slide, please. This is now getting up to the dwelling itself. Next slide, please. And then this is looking back again down that driveway. Again, Bryden's Bay Road is out of sight. Next slide, please. So this is the view at the front of the dwelling, and here's the open deck right now, which will be the location of the proposed screened-in porch. So imagine that wood open deck that you're seeing now, completely enclosed. It would be considered habitable space, and that's why the front lot line, or the front yard setback to the lake, is now moving up from the 20.1 meters, which is existing, which would approximately be at the window, and now moving to the edge of that deck. Next slide, please. So this is standing approximately at the edge of the deck. You can kind of make out that deck post just on the left side of the screen. This is just showing the vegetation and the neighboring property. You can just make out a window there, but you can see from an impact standpoint, it appears to be well screened. Next slide, please. And then this is, again, the porch addition would be to the right-hand side of those bay windows that you're seeing. And this is, again, then now looking at vegetation on the left-hand side, and you can see a neighboring roof line there, which wouldn't be impacted by the proposed addition. Next slide, please. This is then moving and looking towards the lake. You can see there are some mature trees there and the neighboring dock. And then last slide, please. This is the view then looking towards the lake. Staff did note in the report, it appears that there is cleared in the centralized area, but the hedgerow that you're seeing on the left-hand side would provide some screening from the lake in the approximate location of where the proposed porch addition is going. Last slide. In conclusion, it's staff's opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the official plan. It's appropriate and represents good planning. As a result, staff are recommending that the application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Does the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? See a shaking of the head? You're here for some questions if there's any? Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, seeing none. Council, are there any questions to the applicant, the planner, or any persons who have made presentations? Councillor Jorgensen?
Hand up instead of pushing my button. Thank you. Shore Road allowance. It appears to not be owned. It's not in the report. Is that something that we, given that we see that there are structures on the Shore Road allowance, would they be required to purchase that?
Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, that is correct. It was noted in the staff report that it does not appear to be owned. We are not able to condition zoning. So typically, like we'd see for a variance application or a consent application of the Committee of Adjustment, we have the mechanism to have conditions for those types of applications, but a zoning bylaw amendment application, we don't.
Councillor Jorgensen?
Put my hand up again, sorry. But given that we've gone out and we now see there's a dock attached to the Shore Road allowance, that does not in of itself trigger that request to purchase Shore Road allowance or enter into a license of occupation?
Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the councillor. So we don't necessarily have the mechanism at the staff level to do that. However, if a complaint came in that a structure was occupying town-owned land, then it would go first to our bylaw department. They would go and inspect and ensure that, one, that it was actually not owned or owned, and two, then follow up their investigation with then perhaps providing some sort of order to go through that exercise. But we would not be seeking that out at this level. A neighboring complaint would need to come in at this point.
Okay. Council, are there any other questions? Mr. Egger, are there any recommendations or comments you'd like to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings?
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff would recommend that the application be approved.
Thank you. The bylaw will be considered later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. Public meeting number 3. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA 44 2023 1353115 Ontario Inc. I will now ask the Manager of Planning Services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application. Mr. Hager?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the subject property is located on Bethune Drive. The property is designated business area in the official plan. Oh, one slide previous, please, sorry. It's also, and is zoned commercial service C2A and is currently subject to special provision 491 in the town zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. The subject property is flat and cleared, and its central portion is surrounded by mature vegetation along its property lines. The property is not currently developed with a principal building, but does contain an existing garage and frame shed. The site is predominantly used for outdoor storage, including construction tools, equipment, vehicles, and other miscellaneous items. Surrounding properties in the area consist of a mixture of commercial, residential, industrial, and vacant uses. Next slide, please. The zoning bylaw amendment application before you today was submitted in order to permit 2 shipping containers on the property. As discussed in the staff report, section 5.30 outlines regulations for shipping containers in the town zoning bylaw. And these regulations state that shipping containers are only permitted in the rural, industrial, and general industrial zones, and outline the maximum number that can be permitted on a property, as well as minimum lot line setback requirements, visual buffering requirements, and use restrictions. And the intentions of these regulations is to permit shipping containers in zones that are defined by permitted uses and lot configurations where the use of the shipping containers would be considered compatible and appropriate, and also to minimize visual impacts of these structures to the streetscape and surrounding properties. As detailed in the staff report, the implementing zoning bylaw will ensure that the proposed shipping containers continue to minimize impacts to the streetscape by establishing a minimum setback, also establishing visual screening and the usage requirements in accordance with the general zoning requirements applying to shipping containers. Additionally, in the special provision, 2 shipping containers will only be permitted as an accessory use to a permitted principal use on the property to ensure that the property continues to be used in accordance with the town zoning bylaw. So in saying that, if the property is no longer used for something that's permitted, then the shipping containers by their virtue would no longer be permitted on the property as well. With respect to agency comments, at the time of writing this report, the chief building official had no objection but recommended that a minimum lot line setbacks are met and that shipping containers are to be cladded to reduce the visual impact, and indicated that building permits will be required for the shipping containers, which are pretty standard comments from the chief building official when it comes to shipping container applications, as this is not something new before council. The infrastructure technologist had no objection and recommended that the applicant screen the shipping containers to shield them from public view. And the manager of revenue had no objection, and the deputy fire chief had no objections, again subject to the standard Ontario Fire Code and Ontario Building Code regulations. Lastly, the District of Muskoka had no objection with the proposed application, and staff have not received any comment from the public on the application. Now looking onto site photos. This is looking into the property from Bethune Drive, and you can note some existing vegetation at the front along the lot lines, to the side and the rear. It also appears that there was a water-filled depression at the front of the property, but no mapping indicates that's a significant environmental feature. Next slide, please. Turning around and looking south, this is a view across from the property's entrance, which appears to contain a detached dwelling and a garage. Next slide, please. This is then looking north, standing in the site. Again, the property is flat and cleared in its central area, and here you'll see the use of the storage equipment, materials, and other miscellaneous items as described in the staff report. Next slide, please. This is then standing close to the property limit that the tree line would probably represent the property limit there, and that trailer beyond is actually on the neighboring property, so you'll see that impacts to the neighboring property are anticipated to be minimal, as it appears it's not developed at the present time. Next slide, please. Looking north, so here are the 2 shipping containers in question. which are positioned in the northwest corner of the property behind other storage items. Next slide. This was the aforementioned existing garage on the property. The applicants did mention at some point they intend on reconstructing it at a later date. And I believe there's one last photo. No, there's one more photo then. Keep going. Here's actually the property or the shipping containers in relation to Bethune Drive. So as part of the special provision, staff are recommending that those shipping containers actually be moved farther back away from the road and be visually screened. So should council approve the amending zoning bylaw, those containers will not stay in the place they're currently located. They will be moved farther away from Bethune Drive, and they will be visually screened with something to the effect of a tight board fence. And as in conclusion, at the last slide, it's very weird not being in control of my own presentation. It's staff's opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the official plan. It's appropriate and represents good planning. Staff are recommending that the application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Does the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? What do you think? Pretty good, eh?
I'm pretty
slick?
impressed, I'd say.
Welcome.
I will say it is the best in Muskoka. This is already on, I see. Okay, great. My name is Savis Feratis of Plan Muskoka, P.O. Box 5384, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H 2K7. I'm here representing the applicants as their agent, and I'm a registered professional planner. I don't have a lot to add. I think Adam's presentation was pretty thorough. The pictures were well done, and I read over the staff report, and me and the applicant, and we agree with the staff's recommendation, and we have no issue with any of the comments made by town agencies on the matter. Just want to make it clear that those two shipping containers have been on this property for close to 10 plus years. One is actually legal non-conforming, and there's been a little bit of back and forth with the town staff about that one. One has not been proven to be so this application would legalize that situation. The applicant has no issue. Moving the containers to meet the side yard and rear yard setbacks of the zone, so you'll see them sort of more central in the property in the future. Screening can occur around the property lines to a greater extent, and that can be implemented as well after this. So I don't really have much more to add than that, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to the application? Seeing none, council, are there any questions for manager of planning or people making presentations? Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. This particular property has two driveways, one on Bethune Drive and one on Coon Road, if I'm not mistaken. And are the shipping containers being requested to be pushed back towards Coon Road? I have a concern about, there's a couple homes on Coon Road, but one not directly across from this particular one, but I'm just wondering if it is appropriate to push them that far back to Coon Road rather than more centrally on the property. And I'm also curious, what is the current use of the property that is permitted?
Mr. Egger, are you going to take it, or does the applicant's planner want to address the question? Okay.
I do want to say that they are close to Coon Road now, and they'll be moving further from Coon Road. So the picture, I think the last photo that you showed, yeah, that's the closest point to them is to Coon Road. They're actually pretty much right on that property line. Maybe we'll get the photo up here. That right there, so that's Coon Road. And they're more or less right on the property line there, so they will be being pushed, I think it's 7 meters, 25 feet, I think, from that property line, so they'll be moving more centrally towards the property. And if my recollection on the use of the property, I think it's equipment storage and tool storage. I think that's the principal land use of that property, right? I think that's good.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Counselor Hunter?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the planner. You say that they've been on the property for 10 years. Is there a long-term plan to maybe build a structure instead, or is the long-term plan to keep these in place?
Through you, Your Worship. The long-term plan, now, the last I know of it, was that there was going to be a new structure built on the property that integrated those shipping containers into the structure of the property, of the building, sorry. So that would sort of negate the look of them as being shipping containers any longer. I don't know if that's still the plan. I know that in order to comply with the requirements that are being placed on the applicant now, this application needed to be approved, and then part of that was to clad those buildings. So that might change, but that was his ultimate goal, I think, for the property, was to tear down that dilapidating looking shed sort of garage on the property and replace it with a structure that integrated the shipping containers and the previous use all together in one sort of storage building.
Okay. You have a subsequent? Counselor Jorgensen?
I didn't push my button again. Speaking to that garage, though, I mean, we know that on the GeoHub that the buildings seldom line up properly, but is that encroaching on the road allowance is a question I have. Do we know that, whether it is or is not? Because, as you said, the shipping containers are right on the property line, but do we know where that property line is? And is the garage actually encroaching, is my question.
Through your worship, my recollection of the survey that I don't have it with me here today, but my recollection was that it was encroaching in the setback, but it wasn't encroaching onto the road allowance. I believe there is a order to rectify or stabilize or remove or demolish that building that's currently on it as well too. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for too much longer.
Okay, council, any other questions? Mr. Agar, are there any recommendations or comments to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings?
Your worship, staff would recommend that the application be approved.
Okay, the bylaw will be considered by council later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. I think we'll roll right into public meeting number 4. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA 48-2023, Jody Yokin. I will now ask the manager of planning services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application.
Thank you, Your Worship. Subject property is on Lake Muskoka and is accessed from Muskoka Beach Road. Next slide, please. The property is designated waterfront area in the official plan, and it's designated residential waterfront zone RW6A in the town zoning bylaw and as discussed in the staff report. Next slide, please. The property is currently developed with a detached dwelling, a shoreline staircase, and a dock. It is predominantly in a natural state. As you can see, it is a very large piece of property. There is some rock outcroppings in the center, and it is also densely vegetated. Properties in the surrounding area I wouldn't necessarily characterize as similar in size, as this is definitely the largest property in the area, but they are still large waterfront lots on Lake Muskoka and some rural back lots as well. Next slide, please. The application was submitted in order to permit a 2-story garage with a sleeping cabin in the 2nd story. The application is proposing to permit a maximum height of 6.9 meters for the 2-story garage, where 6 meters is permitted, and 66.9 square meters of habitable floor area for the sleeping cabin in the 2nd story, where 46.5 square meters is permitted. With respect to the height request, the intention of the maximum height provision is to permit for a detached garage that will not exceed 2 stories in height, and that will remain clearly accessory to the principal residential use, and that will also minimize adverse visual impacts to the waterfront and surrounding properties. The proposed development remains 2 stories in height, and it is also noted that it's sufficiently set back from the optimal summer water level, as well as other lot lines. As we did see, this is a very large property. It also does not exceed the maximum permitted lot coverage in the town zoning bylaw. In addition, the building will be set back behind the existing development, and it will remain considerably smaller in nature than the existing dwelling, and will be screened by both the natural terrain and mature vegetation on the property, and again, as well as the dwelling itself. And we'll see some more site photos here later in the presentation that will depict that. With respect to the maximum floor area, the intention of the maximum floor area provisions for a sleeping cabin is to ensure that these structures clearly remain accessory to the principal residential use of the waterfront property, and to remain appropriate in scale and to limit impacts to the waterfront area and neighboring properties. In this regard, the proposed sleeping cabin will be accommodated within the upper floor of the proposed detached garage, which will minimize site disturbances. We'll see here soon with site photos, visual impacts both to the waterfront area as well as neighboring owners are anticipated to be minimal. And with respect to size, it will remain clearly accessory to the, compared to the existing principal structure on the property. With respect to agency comments, the chief building official, the infrastructure technologist, and the manager of revenue had no objection with the proposed application. The deputy fire chief, again, no objection, subject to Ontario Fire Code and Ontario Building Code regulations. And lastly, the District of Muskoka had no objection to the proposed application as well. Moving on to site photos. Oh, sorry, we have a view there as well. So that's just a front elevation of the proposed garage. So this is the long leading driveway into the property. Densely vegetated on both sides, and as you saw from that aerial, there was some rock outcroppings present on the site, so you can see an example of that there just on the right of your screen. Next slide, please. Moving north, this is now a view of the existing dwelling. You can see there's some rock outcropping to the back. You see beyond the chimney and the trees is the lake. Next slide, please. This is then looking back up the driveway we came. You'll see the rock outcropping. The proposed building is going to be located on elevated lands on the right-hand side of this image, and in the next photo, we will actually be up on top of that, I believe. Next slide, please. Yes, so now we're up onto the right-hand side of your screen, and this is a predominantly flat piece of land. And this is the approximate building envelope of the proposed garage, which would be accessed from that driveway that you saw in the image before. Next slide, please. This image looks west from the development footprint, and it shows the existing driveway and the dense vegetation. And again, looking in all directions, not only do you not see any neighboring properties, you can't see the driveway. Next slide, please. And then this would be turning from the lake. So it would have some views from the lake, but again, there's large trees in the foreground, then the dwelling, then the dense vegetation up against the water as well. Next slide, please. This is then behind that footprint, and it also has a rock outcropping at the rear of it. So this would then visually block the proposed garage from any impacts on the road, albeit it's set back quite a distance from the traveled portion of any road. Next slide, please. This is looking east from that development footprint, and this was an attempt to try to see any neighboring property owner at all. Again, staff could not observe any dwelling within the vicinity of the proposed building envelope. Next slide, please. This is down then looking at the water's edge, the shoreline staircase, the existing dock. Again, you'll see the tall trees in that. In this picture, next slide, please. And then this is then standing up at the dock. So from the vantage point or the view from the canoe or the view from the lake, you'd have to go up the rock wall beyond the dwelling and then back a considerable distance from the dwelling beyond more trees before you even got to the proposed garage. Next slide, please. As a result, it's staff's opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the official plan. It's appropriate and represents good planning. As a result, staff are recommending that the application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Does the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? We're polling all the local planners. What do you think?
Yeah, very impressive.
Great.
Yeah, best in
Right
Muskoka.
answer, right answer. Go ahead, thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Lenny Dennis Planning. Appreciate the efforts of staff bringing the application forward. I think that's a fair and accurate assessment of the proposal and concur with the planning department to approve the application. Just quickly, and I think a lot of these points have been included in the staff report, but the merits of the proposal are clearly accessory. This building is clearly accessory to the main building. It's located central to the property when compared to the abutting neighbors on either side. It's roughly about 100 meters from the shoreline, and as indicated by the planning department, there's virtually no impact on the shoreline. It has a negligible development footprint on the lot when you compare it to the size of the lot itself. It's well buffered from the neighbors. It's well buffered from the water with existing mature tree cover. It maintains the two-story effect. It's got the flat roof design and not the peak roof, minimizing the visual impact. It's located behind the existing dwelling, which also helps to buffer it. It's not above the tree line, and certainly rather than building a larger cottage, I think the built form is much better being pushed back further on the property, minimizing visual impact from the shore. They wanted to consolidate the sleeping cabin into the garage to minimize the environmental disruption on the lot. And there's been no objection from any of the agencies, nor am I aware of any objections from the neighbors. So I'd respectfully request Planning Council recommend approval of the application. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak to the application? Okay, seeing none. Council, are there any questions to the applicants or the planner, or any persons who have made presentation? I'm going to go to Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. It's because I pushed my button and he held his hand.
Yes, that's exactly why, Councillor Hunter.
So my question is it a full apartment or is it just sleeping quarters above?
Mr. Egger?
Through your worship to Councillor Hunter. So it's a sleeping cabin, so it's not considered a dwelling unit, it's a sleeping cabin. They would be permitted something like a sink or a fridge, but there's no cooking facilities permitted at all. So it's not as if this is a second residential dwelling unit that could be rented out. This is a sleeping cabin, similar or also known as a bunkie. I just would like to make that clear. Thanks.
Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to be clear here, on our sketch or the site plan here, it says proposed bunkie, but that's the location of the garage / bunkie, right? Is that correct? Okay. Given the size of this property, would an additional bunkie be permitted?
Mr. Egger?
Through your worship, I would have to double check their frontage, but they're well in excess of the area requirements, and they it could be depending on the frontage.
Okay. Council, are there any other questions? Mr. Egger, are there any recommendations to, or comments to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings?
Your worship, staff would recommend that the application be approved.
Okay, thank you. The bylaw will be considered by council later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. Council, I'm going to take a 5-minute break right now. Just we've been at it since 2 with the closed session. So if we could just have a 5-minute recess, I would personally be appreciative of that. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, council. So we'll move right into bylaws. It is moved by Councillor Strang, second by Councillor Robinson. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be read, passed, and engrossed into the bylaw book. Okay, that just struck me as funny. I'm just thinking about the bylaw book, like where it is. Okay, anyway, yeah. It's going to be engrossed into the bylaw book. Sorry. I don't know why that, after all this time, struck me as funny. Okay, be it resolved that the following bylaws be read, passed, and engrossed into the bylaw book. Bylaw number 2024-16, zoning, Denison and Stebbing, Bass Lake. Bylaw number 2024-17, zoning, Cameron, Lake Muskoka. Bylaw number 2024-18, zoning, 1353115 Ontario Inc., Bethune Drive. And bylaw number 2024-19, zoning, Yokin, Lake Muskoka. Council, are there any bylaws you'd like to be removed for discussion? Okay. So I will ask you to cast your vote on the 4 bylaws.
Sorry, something's happening here. Gonna restart that.
Okay. Try it again. Perfect. Okay, that carries. It looks good, but it's not without its glitches, so we're gonna get those all worked out. Okay, so that carries, so thank you. It is moved by Councillor Strang, second by Councillor Varney. Be it resolved that the minutes of council meeting dated January 23rd, 2024 be approved as circulated. All in favor? Oh, sorry, cast your vote, please. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. Me. Okay, and that carries. Thank you. And it is moved by Councillor Varney, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that the bylaw number 2024-20 to confirm the council meeting held on February 27th, 2024 be passed. Cast your vote.
Sorry about that.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, one more. Okay, one more. Me not voted. Thank you. There we go. That carries. Thank you. And I have Councillor Robinson and Councillor Johnston for a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, I don't know why it's doing that. I'm trying to put the adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn, Councillor Robinson and Councillor Johnston. And we'll cast our votes. And that carries. See you on the curling sheets on Saturday for our town. Oh, okay, well, some of us are gonna be curling for the town bonspiel, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay, thanks again.